everyone, I'm Jacqueline. Welcome back to my kitchen. This is Low Carblish, the channel where we make our favorite foods, low carb versions of our favorite high carb foods. Today, y'all, I have got a treat for you. I have been working on this recipe for a while, and I finally have gotten the perfect recipe for me for keto low carb cornbread. So it's super simple, and I'm going to show you how to make it right now. This recipe is super easy, you guys. I'm going to be using a half a cup of almond flour, a fourth of a cup of coconut flour, 3 tablespoons of hemp hearts, and these are what are going to give your cornbread that sort of granular cornbready feel that we all enjoy. A third of a cup of pork rinds, and you want to pack these down really well in the cup when you make them. We're going to have a half a cup of heavy whipping cream and a half a cup of beef broth, not chicken broth, but beef broth. This really adds a nice depth of flavor to it. And then 3 eggs. And then this is the little nugget that we're going to be using to get the corn flavor in the cornbread. This is amaretti corn extract. And I will tell you right off the bat, this stuff is expensive. But if you are looking for the corn flavor to add to some of your dishes, it's worth it. To me, it's worth it. You can totally make this recipe without it, but it will not have that same kind of corn flavor that this one does. And even though this stuff is expensive, you're only going to be using a teaspoon of it in this recipe, and you don't use a whole lot of it in other recipes, but it really is very tasty. So one thing that I want to tell you before we get started, I've got the oven preheating at 350, and I've got my 8x8 baking dish in there, and I've put 2 tablespoons of avocado oil in there, and I'm letting it heat up in the oven while we make this, because heating the oil up before we put the cornbread mixture in there is going to help give it a nice crispy crust on the bottom. So let's get started. So first of all, we're going to put the dry ingredients in. I've got my almond flour, and you guys, please, please, please sift your flours when you're doing this. I promise you it will make it better. Because especially the almond flour, the coconut flour you get a little bit of it, but it's not as bad. But especially the almond flour, you're going to get some of these little clumps, and we just want to get rid of all that and make sure that we don't have that, so that our cornbread will have a nice texture to it. Alright, and then so we can get the last little bit of that in there. Alright, and so the next thing we're going to put in is the coconut flour. And same thing, sift, 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 sift. And we are going to do the same thing. Alright, and then we're going to do our hemp parts, and you just toss them in. And the these are pork rinds, y'all. And we're going to put the pork rinds in next. And I just take my fork and sort of mix all the dry ingredients together before I put my baking soda and my baking powder in there. And so Macy is complaining today. I don't know why. Alright, so the next thing we're going to do, I've got a teaspoon of baking powder that I'm going to add in, and a fourth of a teaspoon of baking soda. And it's important to use both of these. I have tried this recipe a few other times using one or the other, and it just works better with using both of them for me, so that's what I do. Alright, and then the next thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to scramble these eggs up just a little bit and add them in. And then we're going to do the beef broth and our heavy cream. And then we're going to put in the liquid gold corn flavoring. And all we're going to do after that is just bake it. So we're going to get all the eggs here. And then I'm going to put in the heavy whipping cream. And I do try to get all the cream and stuff out of the bowl just because of the macros and all that stuff. I want to be as accurate as possible. And then we're going to do the beef broth in here. And then we're just going to stir it up. Get it all mixed up well. And you do have to stir it up pretty good because sometimes the coconut flour and almond flour will hide in little spots, and you'll have dry spots if you don't stir it up really well. But y'all, this is so close to actual cornbread. I sent some home with Jenny last week when I was testing this recipe, and her husband did not know that it was low-carb cornbread. So, you know, if you got people that are eating high carb that can't tell it, that's a good thing. All right, so this is what we're looking for when it's mixed up. And then we're gonna add the liquid gold here. And this is Amaretti corn flavoring. And I'll leave a link to it on Amazon if you wanna order some. And like I said, you can make this recipe without it, but it really does add a lot to it. So, and like I said, we're gonna do a teaspoon, and that is it. And I do like to go in here with the spatula and get all of that flavoring out. Mostly because it's so expensive and it won't waste any of it. But it is so good, y'all. And this recipe is amazing, and it pairs really well with like vegetable soup. I've got a casserole dish that I'm working on that I paired it with a while back, and it went really well with that too. So I think you guys are gonna be happy with it. All right, so let me cut away for a minute here. I'm gonna go over and pull my pan out of the oven, and we'll get it in the pan and bake it, and then we'll be back. Okay, y'all, so I'm gonna pull my pan out, and remember I told you I put a couple of tablespoons of oil in here, and it really does help you guys to put the oil in while you're making it and letting the oven heat up and everything, because it really does help crisp the bottom of it up some. So we're just going to pour the batter into the hot oil pan. And this is going to make 9 servings. And the thing that is really great about this recipe, other than the fact that it really tastes like cornbread, is that it's got 199 calories per piece. And that includes the calories from the oil in the pan, because it will get absorbed for the most part while it's cooking. But it's only got 1 point something net carbs, and I'll post that down in the description like I always do. I think it's like 1.28 or something like that. It's ridiculously low and fabulously delicious. So let me put this back in the oven. So it's going into a 350-degree oven, and it's going to bake for 30 minutes, and then it'll be ready. And when we come back, we'll be eating some cornbread. Okay, y'all, so the cornbread's ready. It's been cooking for half an hour at 350. And y'all, look at that beautiful cornbread. I'm telling you, it is delicious. So I need to let this rest for about 5 minutes. And then when we come back, I'm going to cut it and plate it up, and we'll do a test, and I'll let you see what it looks like close up inside. And I'm telling y'all, it is some kind of good. So we'll be right back. Okay, y'all, so the cornbread is cooled off, and I'm going to cut it into 9 different pieces, and then we're going to take some out, and I'll show you how it looks on the inside, and then we'll be doing the taste test. And I'm not kidding, y'all, you're going to be surprised at how close to regular cornbread this tastes. It's really good. And I'm going to try to get a little corner piece out here because I like the corner pieces. And it's going to come out just fine for me. And you can see the edges get nice and crispy. And y'all just look at the inside of that cornbread. Okay guys, so here is the cornbread. I've already put a little bit of butter in it. It's going to be so good. I'm telling you guys, if y'all have been craving cornbread, this is the recipe for you. So, honestly, you guys, it is fabulous. And like I said, this recipe, it makes 9 pieces. Let me get a sip of coffee. Sorry about that. It makes 9 pieces, and they're under 2 carbs a piece, 199 calories. So if you pair this with a low carb soup or a low carb casserole, you're good to go. And you could even have a couple of pieces of it depending on what your calorie requirements are and how many calories are in the food that you're putting with it. So I hope that you will try this and love it as much as I love it. Also, if you could please hit that like button for me. It really does help people that have just been diagnosed to find my channel and find the help that they need. Also, I would love it if you would subscribe. You'll never miss another recipe that I have. But if you don't want to subscribe, that's cool too. We still want you to come visit and cook with us. So thanks again for coming and hanging out with me and cooking today, and I will talk to you soon. Bye-bye.